Welcome back to the quarterfinals of the FCT Inter-Private School Debate Competition. My name is Omikwido Nimatela Teniola and I'm your moderator for today. The motion for today is, this House believes that the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, does not lack the capacity to conduct free and fair elections in Nigeria. Our schools are Sure Start schools, which is on the proposing side, while Raberto schools on the opposing side. Can we have the first speaker from the proposing side take the stage?
Today, we gather at the crossroad of our democracy. Today, we gather at the crossroad of our democracy, where the very fabric of our electoral system is under scrutiny and severe questioning. Is the integrity of our electoral system truly secure, or should I use the terms in our motion, fair and just? Or are we merely trusting in a process that is scribbled with flaws? The entire electoral system mainly depends on the confidence people place in our electoral umpire. And if that trust erodes, what then happens to our democracy? As we deliberate on the future of our journey, we will understand that the stakes are high. Let me provoke your thoughts with this quote. The true test of democracy is not the grandeur of its election, but in the electoral processes. With these thoughts in mind, I welcome you all to the second edition of our debate. Greetings to you, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen. I am Maimuna Isa, a student of Sure Start School, standing to confidently propose the motion. This House believes that the Independent National Electoral System, INEC, lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections. As we embark on this intellectual journey, we're urging an introspection and reformed mindset. We holistically will examine the flaws and confronting the realities, and also seeking possible solutions to the challenges of our democratic institution. Let's start by addressing the contextual overview. Nigeria's electoral history has been marred up by controversies, irregularities, and predatory tendencies that have shown that INEC lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections. And I ask, do these history instill confidence or more doubts? INEC was established in 1999 by the Constitution and Electoral Act 98 as an election management body, but up to date, have they lived up to the mandates and expectations, or do they persist concerns about INEC's capacity and capability? Cited by Ken Inamani, former Senate President, he said, and I quote, "Every succeeding election is better than the previous one. If elections in 1999 are better than those in 2003, and those in 2003 are better than those in 2007, then where is the integrity? Where is the capability to conduct free and fair elections?" And INEC is the center of it. Furthermore, electoral irregularities. Free and fair elections are the...
So I would like to propose this to you, the theory of public choice, which states that public institutions perform significantly better when there is public trust. This is also backed by statistics, as Nigeria's highest ranking elections had public backing. So please respond.
Where did you get that information from?
The information.
I will get back to you. Furthermore, electoralities. Free and fair elections are the bedrock of democracy, but INEC's capacity to deliver this is questionable. During the 2019, 2003, and 2007 elections in Nigeria, widely criticized for widespread of rigging, manipulation, vote buying, ballot snatching and result alteration, cannot easily be forgotten in the minds of the electorate, who, despite lack of confidence and trust in the INEC to exercise their franchise, but their trusts were further eroded due to lack of competence, capability issues, and the electoral umpires highly regrettable. Technical challenges. Are we still not facing technological challenges? It is glaring and clear that INEC has faced several technological issues, ranging from the IRF portal breakdown, technological glitches, cybersecurity risk, and the smart card reader failures. The IRF portal breakdown during the 2023 election results viewing portal. On the 25th of February 2023, during the president's deep systematic flaws, without robust technology capacity, elections cannot be free and fair. How susceptible are our system to interference? During the 2023 elections, transmission challenges and cybersecurity threats made questions whether the results could be trusted. from inadequate infrastructure, integration challenges. Inadequate infrastructure which further hampers effectiveness. How can INEC ensure timely collection and transportation of materials when they are faced with unreliable internet connectivity to rely on the internet transmission when the infrastructure is so far? This is the integrity of data when the infrastructure is so far. This is the integrity of data that cannot be guaranteed due to interference. Then without confidence, can we place trust in the result? Autonomy issues, electoral credibility, and INEC's lack of independence to leadership, funding decisions, and politically appointed leadership. INEC's commission and INEC's chairman and commissioners are appointed by the president. And for example, President Buhari, who reappointed Professor Mahmoud Yakubu during the 2020 party. Can INEC truly be neutral when its leadership is chosen by those participating in elections? Finally, budgetary dependence about late budget approval affecting the logistics and procurement. If INEC relies on the politicians for budgets, how then can they challenge or punish it fairly? Limited control over the police and military. INEC does not control the police, nor do they control the military. So how then can they be dependent in securing and making sure that there is safety in electoral environments? During the 2019 elections, there were reports of military interference and voter suppression, especially in opposition strongholds. An electoral body that cannot guarantee the safety of the voting process is not autonomous. It is vulnerable. Supporters, respected colleagues, what do we expect of this House today, and not names? With the points I've mentioned.
So, ladies and gentlemen, family and their generals were able to succeed. But about only 10 years later, they bear witness to its downfall. Most situation applies very nicely to today's motion that states that the Independent National Electoral Commission is incapable of carrying out free and fair elections, which I stand firmly against. So with that I say, good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, the moderator, and my fellow debaters. So, I ask that you lend me your ears as I list my... Just because you are struggling does not mean you are failing. INEC did face significant challenges during the 2023 election from the rule. For example, the security issues. What most people don't know is that the Independent National Electoral Commission is not necessarily responsible for security. Yes, while they do take charge, how the commission faced over 50 attacks from 2019 to December of 2022. Additionally, the Central Bank of Nigeria's cash reform policy led to cash shortages which impacted logistical operations. But despite all of these, the Independent National Electoral Commission election within due time, which cannot be said for many other countries. For instance, Kenya. Kenya's 2017 election stands as one of the most strange elections, not just for a West African nation, but for any nation in the entire planet. So let me give you some context. Kenya was holding its 2017 election. At this point in time, there were only two leading parties. So the day of the results comes in. One of the parties wins. But the opposing party notices something strange, logistical issues and problems. So they take this problem to the Supreme Court of Kenya to have the decision upheld. And surprisingly, the decision was upheld, and then the election results were overturned, which is very surprising. Kenya faced similar problems to INEC, but they weren't even able to hold their own election, whereas we were able to do such. So, for anyone who wants to say that INEC is not able to do a good job, we must take a look at our neighboring countries who haven't even been able to work with what they've been given. Secondly, effective logistics and planning. INEC's 2023 logistics and planning is severely understated and mostly overshadowed by other problems. For example, INEC needed over 100,000 vehicles and about 4,000 boats to transport personnel and vehicles, especially to riverine areas. But there was an issue at the time. There was a problem of fuel scarcity. So INEC were able to agree nations in almost every single global chart. They still face electoral problems to this day. For instance, in the 2020 election, they had many logistical issues, and there was many problems with technological equipment and voting equipment. But most people don't give America nearly as much scrutiny as INEC does. So this shows that this narrative and this problem is mostly as a result of public narratives and misinformation. Additionally, India in 2019 also had electoral issues and logistical problems with their own elections. For instance, India had malfunctioning voting machines, there was many weather terrain issues, and many staggered voting. But despite this, many people do not often talk about India's problems. They mostly tend to talk about INECs. Lastly, my last point is global recognition and technological partnerships. Yes.
Can you provide concrete examples on how INEC reforms have made electoral processes in Nigeria better?
Yes, the 2023 elections problems could have been much worse, but they weren't, for one reason and one reason only. INEC made the shocking decision to integrate technology more than they already had with the introduction of the BVAS system, which made the election process far more smooth than it already was. Without this, the election would have been significantly worse. I will continue. So, I started my third point, global recognition and technological partnerships. INEC's efforts have not gone unnoticed. INEC has been able to gather significant global recognition, and this has acquired them many technological partnerships with several corporations, such as Action Aid Nigeria, who are able to help INEC hold the 2023 election. And additionally, this has allowed INEC to introduce what is known as the BVAS system, which is used for voter accreditation inside the country. And many analysts today cite this as one of the most crucial and important pieces of the 2023 election. Many other countries, like Nigeria, have faced technological issues, but they were not able to fix it like the country. For instance, for the Philippines, inside their most recent election, the 2022 election, faced significant problems with the technology. There was a delay in the results. There was also malfunctioning of different voting equipment. And even in the election before that, there was a 7-hour delay of the results for the election. So as you can see, the Independent National Electoral Commission has been able to work very well with the materials that they have been given. So, if a sword breaks, so if a man uses a sword and his sword breaks, who do you blame? The person wielding the sword or the force that broke it? So, I hope that with these points that I have listed, I have been able to effectively convince you that the Independent National Electoral Commission is capable of carrying out free and fair elections in Nigeria. I also hope that I've been able to show you, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, and the moderator, that this problem is mostly as a result of public narratives and misinformation, and not actual truth.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, first prop speaker, for that wonderful speech. We call upon the second prop speaker. Here.
What is a country without great leaders? Well, in this case, it's different. Without much ado, greetings Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, equitable judges in jury, unerring timekeeper, my co-debater and prominent audience. Standing before you today is Onuche Great, a prestigious student of Short Star School, to proudly propose the motion. This House believes that the Independent National Electoral Commission lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections in Nigeria. As I listen to my opponent, the first speaker, I'm struck and baffled by the complexity of these issues. While their perspectives may offer valuable insights, I'm worried that we are overlooking crucial aspects of the Nigerian electoral system in alter to the oratory arguments and points that may not really reflect to the current realities. Because as we all know, the credibility of an election isn't just about numbers. It's about the trust it inspires an electorate. So let's ensure this discussion reflects this nuance as intellectuals. Election is meant to be a democratic process in which citizens exercise their rights by voting for leaders. Take the countries like the United States and France, for example. They have good democratic processes. When it comes to Nigeria, it's a whole different story to tell, not neglecting the fact that INEC plays an important role in this. Let me elaborate with the following point. First and foremost, lack of transparency and poor communication. Free and fair elections require transparency at every stage, from registration of voters to results collation. INEC has made critical decisions without giving clear examples to the public, fueling suspicion of bias and manipulation. Take for instance, in the 2023 election, INEC failed to give a proper reason for the inability to upload electoral results to the IRF portals. Instead, gave vague statements about technical issues which cannot be independently verified. Damaging the Commission's credibility. Secondly, weak voter education and awareness. INEC has a constitutional mandate of educating voters, yet it has consistently failed to do so effectively. Low public understanding of voters' procedures, accreditation procedures, and technological tools hinder electoral processes and also increases the likelihood of errors. Still taking the 2023 election, please, a question.
Do you have proof that INEC's problem is not systemic or institutional? Because all you have mentioned are just the problems of the systems, not institutions.
Not the constitution. I will answer your question later. Please let me finish. Still taking the 2023 election as an example. In the 2023 election, many citizens, especially those in rural areas, didn't know how to use the BVAS, which is the bimodal voters accreditation system, and could not locate their polling units due to poor communication by INEC. The failure to engage in widespread civic education contributed to high rates in invalid votes and voter apathy. It's also worth mentioning the judicial reversals exposes systematic flaws. A large number of election results declared by INEC are frequently overturned in court, which indicates that INEC doesn't often conduct election in line with the level of standards. This wastes judicial resources and proves INEC's lack of reliability. A striking example of this was in the 2019 election. INEC initially declared winners of all positions in Zamfara State under the All Progressive Congress, which is the APC, including the governors, the senators, and members of the House of Representatives. And then what happens? Judicial reversals. In May 2019, the Supreme Court of Nigeria nullified all APC victories in Zamfara State. The court ruled that APC didn't conduct a proper or valid JEGA, postponed election in several states due to logistical failures and missing materials. However, this decision was not applied uniformly. Was not applied uniformly across all states in the nation, raising questions about inconsistency and neutrality. And then what happens? In some states like Kaduna and Bauchi, elections were completely postponed due to the late arrivals, or rather the non-arrivals of materials. But in other states like Lagos and Rivers, election went on despite late start. If this is incompetence, there was ease. Finally, voter suppression and disenfranchisement. Reports of missing names of voters, voter registers, poor voters' education, and unsafe polling environment points to INEC's failure to ensure inclusive participation. An example of this was in 2019, about 1.1 million PVCs were declared uncollected, partly due to poor voters' education and disorganized distribution. This isn't the time to be afraid to speak the truth. Don't be shy of pointing out where things have gone wrong. Remember, this isn't just a debate about an institution. It's a conversation about our future and the democracy we all dream of. As I conclude, honorable judges, if my opponents may wish to argue further, which I think they should not, I urge for your support, and I believe I have done that by convincing you that the Independent National Electoral Commission lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, second prof, for that wonderful speech. We call upon the second op to further the case for the opposition. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, the moderator, panel of judges, accurate timekeepers, and co-debaters. My name is Oluchi Kubwa from Raberto Schools, and let me begin by asking you this. If Nigeria peacefully transition power, deploy real-time electoral technology, and maintain an independent electoral body in the face of political pressure, then why should we underestimate the power and strength of INEC? As Kofi Annan once said, democracy is not the absence of imperfections, but it is the presence of institutions that are willing to improve. And with that, I stand here to oppose the motion that says the Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria is incapable of conducting free and fair elections. My first point is democratic consolidation theory, progress over time. Is Nigeria's democracy fragile, or are we underestimating how far we've come compared to global counterparts? Democratic consolidation theory posits that as a nation develops politically, its democratic institutions strengthens over time. INEC has made tremendous progress over time since its flawed elections in 2003 and 2007. The watershed moment came in 2015 when the sitting president, Goodluck Jonathan, was peacefully conceded defeat. Nigeria became the first West African country to peacefully vote out a sitting president, a milestone that surprised others and gained global respect. The former president late Robert Mugabe clung to power for over 37 years despite disputed elections. In Belarus, mass protests followed a clearly rigged election in 2020, and even in the US, the capital was stormed in 2021 over baseless election fraud claims. While Nigeria still faces electoral challenges, INEC has never proceeded over a post-election civil war, unlike Cote d'Ivoire in 2010, where over 3,000 people died, nor has it overseen elections that led to military coup, like in Mali or Guinea. Despite imperfections, INEC's ability to facilitate peaceful transition repeatedly places it far ahead of many global counterparts. My next point is technological integration, innovation, and transparency. If trust in election hinges on transparency, then is Nigeria not ahead with its digital innovations? Modernization theory emphasizes that the use of technology enhances credibility, accountability, and efficiencies of these institutions. INEC's introduction of BVAS and IREV has improved accuracy and has restored public confidence. During the 2023 elections, in contrast to what the first opposition speaker said, over 94% of polling units uploaded results to the IRF portal in real time, allowing open access to data, a feat many democracies are yet to achieve. Kenya's 2017 election were nullified by the Supreme Court over flawed digital transparencies and transmission. Venezuela's system was so manipulated in 2018 that even the system who built it disowned the results. Yes, technical hiccups have occurred, but Nigeria has never experienced a full shutdown or cancellation due to technical failure, unlike the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2011, where the system crashed mid-section. INEC systems are not only functional, they are also improving, a clear sign of institutional competence and vision. Lastly, institutional theory, INEC's legal framework. Can a nation rise without strong institutions carrying the weight of democracy? Institution theory emphasizes that strong law-based institutions are essential for stability, accountability, and democratic integrity. INEC is constitutionally backed by Section 153 and empowered by the 2022 Electoral Act that has significantly expanded its independence and authority. The 2022 Electoral Act not only allows for electronic transmission of results, but also impose stricter penalties for electoral offences, strengthening INEC's hand and reducing impunity. Unlike in Myanmar, where the military annulled elections in 2021, or in Russia, where the Electoral Commission is tightly controlled by the Kremlin, INEC operates with independence and has resisted political hijacking. INEC has nullified rigged elections in states like Rivers, Imo, and Kogi, something electoral bodies in Cambodia and Iran wouldn't dare to do. And may I say this, it's rigged elections, meaning that INEC had nothing to do whatsoever with it, and it was able to pick up with this and also address it appropriately by nullifying it. That level of autonomy and legal backing shows no weakness but boldness, a sign that Nigeria's democratic engine is working where others have stalled. As the former USA President Barack Obama once said, one flawed election does not define a system. INEC has shown to rise above challenges, and with citizen vigilance, free and fair elections are not only possible but inevitable. And most of the points that my opponent said were based off of the system. It wasn't really the problem of the institution INEC. So how can you blame INEC? Is there any issue that INEC has had that other countries or electoral bodies or systems have not? In fact, I think INEC has greater approaches to challenges and obstacles that come their way. With that, I hope my points have been able to convince you that the Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria is capable of conducting free and fair elections in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Second Up, for that wonderful speech. We call up on the third prop speaker. Yeah.
When the umpire plays favorites, the game is never fair, no matter how loud the whistle blows. And in Nigeria's democracy, the umpire isn't just holding the whistle. He is rewriting the scorecard and deciding the winner before the match even begins. Respectfully building on the protocol already established, I am Fatima Mustafa, proudly representing Sure Start Schools, and I rise as the final speaker of the proposition to the motion this House believes that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections in Nigeria. Let me begin by peeling apart the polished promises of the opposing bench. The second speaker might have praised INEC to be constitutionally independent and therefore capable. But I ask, of what use is independence without integrity? In the 2007 elections, international observers, including the EU, described Nigeria's elections as one of the worst they have ever witnessed. Is this independence or impunity? Even the head of the European Union Electoral Observation Mission said that the 2007 elections fell far short from basic international standards. So independence without accountability? That's not capacity. That's chaos dressed in credentials. You may hear them say, these issues are exceptions, minor glitches in an otherwise growing system. That technologies like BVAS and IRF has modernized the process. But what is a tool in the hands of a trembling craftsman? What is technology in the hands of an institution that fumbles every rollout? When election after election is stained with delays, distrust, and violence, are we still talking about exceptions or a system that's exceptionally broken? And if the third speaker dares to say the INEC is learning from its mistakes, let me ask, how many elections must a nation endure before the learner becomes the leader? How many chances does it take to get it right? From 1999 to 2023, that's 7 electoral cycles, over 2 decades, yet the headlines remain the same. Violence, irregularities, missing votes, yet the same complaints echo like a broken record. Is that growth or just repetition with better excuses? Another story they'll spin is INEC needs more time, more money, more support. Yes?
Yes, sorry. And you did state that the headlines do reflect violence and that the system is getting worse. But I don't think that actually reflects the reality, because many international observers have cited that Nigeria has greatly improved in its election conduction. So how do you respond to that?
I'll take that question in a minute. Another story they'll spin is INEC needs more time, more money, more support. But INEC was handed the highest budgets in 2023. Billions were spent on ICT alone, yet voter accreditation failed. Results failed to be transmitted in real time, and the very tools that were supposed to protect our democracy were the ones that broke it. We gave them resources, we gave them years. What we didn't get was results. Allow me to dive into areas they won't reach. The facts. Technological failures. INEC rolled out BVAS to verify voters and IRF to transmit results in real time. But in the 2023 elections, the system collapsed. The Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, reported delays in 30% of polling units, in contradiction to what the second speaker has said. The YIAGA Africa reported discrepancies between votes counts and the results uploaded. Let me now take you to where the opposition refuses to go. The streets of Nigeria. In Rivers State 2023, reports flooded of INEC officials refusing to upload results. In the Lagos State, there was an open voter suppression, especially in areas known for supporting the opposition candidates. In Imo State, election materials arrived late or not at all. From ballot box snatching in Kogi and Bayelsa, intimidation in Lagos and Ebonyi, to bribery of INEC officials exposed by EFCC in multiple states. The pattern is clear. Nigeria's elections are not based on votes, but on violence and vultures. Erosion of public trust. A 2023 poll by Afrobarometer showed that only 23% of Nigerians trust INEC to do its job. And trust once broken is hard to rebuild. Let's strip this down to reality. You can fund an institution, train its workers, and pass all the reform bills you want. But when the trust of the people is lost, no ballot box can bring it back. Democracy doesn't just die in one day. It bleeds out slowly, every time INEC fails to protect the voice of the people. Now let me ask, how does this compare globally? Yes?
Yes, I have an issue with one of your points. The issue with the results of the elections is actually the fault of the government, not INEC. So
INEC is the Independent National Electoral Commission, which means it has every right and it has to do with the elections. So if it does not have the capacity to conduct these elections. Now let me ask, how does this compare globally? Countries like India and Canada have independent EMBs too. But you don't hear of armed thugs chasing voters or election officers bribed in broad daylight. You don't hear of court cases deciding who won. You hear results. You see legitimacy. So what does all this mean? It means INEC has structure but no soul. It has power but no principle. It wears a badge of independence but walks like a marionette of the mighty. In conclusion, this motion is not about exposing INEC's flaws. It is about awakening Nigeria. It is not from every voter that skewed in the sun and storm only to be told, go home, the system is down. It is not bitterness, it is a bridge from broken ballots to bold reforms, from manipulated elections to meaningful democracy. So if we do not stop INEC now, then we are not conducting an election. We are conducting experiments on hope. Let us not keep handing over our future to broken system and broken reforms. Let us not keep watching votes vanish into silence. This is not an attack, it is an alarm. And it's ringing for every Nigerian whose vote has been silenced, stolen, or simply swept away. This house does not speak out of anger, but out of urgency. Because if we do not question INEC now, then we will have no more elections left to question. This house firmly, finally, and fearlessly believes that INEC lacks the capacity to conduct free, fair, credible, and transparent elections in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, third Prof Speaker, for that wonderful speech. Third up, here.
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, first, to contradict the point the third speaker made about something about the streets of Lagos. In February 2023, a 75-year-old woman situated in Kogi State named Mama Rachel left her house at 6 a.m. in the morning and walked nearly 2 kilometers with a walking stick just to cast her vote. Why? She said, and I quote, I think onto the IRF portal for public display. She saw change. So let me ask this change. Who are we, the enlightened generation, to display political apathy? With that, I say good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman, Moderator, panel of Raberto Schools, and I stand firmly today to oppose the following are my points. Firstly, through the CVR exercise ahead of the 2023 elections which passed, INEC launched targeted educational campaigns in indigenous languages, radio jingles, and partnered with the National Orientation Agency for rural voter awareness. Special provisions were made for disabilities, including braille ballots as well as priority queues. In India, one of Asia's largest countries, which upholds the largest democracy in the world, voter turnout was extreme. A quote from Yaga Africa says, INEC outreach is impressive in terms of scale and intent, and this is just something we need to recognize and applaud. Secondly, electoral monitoring and observation. INEC has embraced public scrutiny just to ensure credibility. Over 146 international observer groups monitored the 2023 elections, including the European Union, ECOWAS, as well as the African Union. The IRF portal allowed real-time results uploads, a move hailed as revolutionary in West Africa. In Kenya's, to add to what my counterpart said, in Kenya's 2017 election, the Supreme Court nullified the results due to irregulations. This is only an honest. That little oversight is only possible when electoral bodies are confident and sure in their ways. Delays in real-time results uploads, but this has even happened in the US. Yes, I did not stutter. The US considered at 2020, and yet no one deemed that they incapable. INEC technology doesn't eliminate failure. Rather, and this is a step INEC has chosen to take. Thirdly, political neutrality and legal action. INEC continues to remain to take. Thirdly, political neutrality and legal action. INEC continues to remain institutionally independent even under institutionally independent even under political, non-performing political fin selective, In India's 2019 from electoral give you a little give you a little insight. Through voter education, it teaches us to not overlook those who don't have the normal capabilities of others, such as disabled people and dissidents. Alter and legal action. It teaches us and dissidents. Alter and legal action. It teaches us not to torture the innocent name of INEC for the nefarious acts. Let drawing what's working. You don't abandon a tree because it hasn't borne fruit yet. You water a tree because it hasn't borne fruit yet. You water area is a bright and blooming country. And INEC, rather, let us protect it from dissidents, to build a Nigeria we are proud of, a Nigeria we respect, and a Nigeria which other countries will be envious of. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful.
Alright, but now I want to begin with my big reply. Firstly, gentlemen, I urge you right now, grab one of your devices, open any search engine, search the results of the 2023 election. You will see in very full detail everything that happened, and you can check when these results were delivered. They were delivered on time. Also, they did cite how they delivered on time. Also, they did cite how there were delays in certain countries. I thought I mentioned how the delays in certain countries were not INEC's own fault, as INEC did face multiple issues, as they got multiple attacks from 2019 to December 2022. Just a year before the election ever faced. So how can you blame INEC for this problem? How can you blame INEC for this problem on their own? And they did cite how APC on their own. And they did cite how APC had their own issues with corruption. Member of APC, President. I'm glad that they mentioned the exact date, 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in 2025. We've improved significantly. Even in just 2015, the election results improved by about 50%. There was less corruption. And we can take a look at Nigeria's 14 other West African countries combined. 93 million. And considering that a large portion of the nation lives in underdeveloped areas that don't have access to voting, you can see just how huge this number is. So, INEC has been able to conduct things with the BVAS, IREV, and our electoral bodies have been able to improve over a short time. Within 2015, we were to reject INEC when it has significantly improved compared to our neighboring and global countries such as Austria and the United States of America that me and all the members of my team have cited to have their own problems. So with that, I ask you to consider the truth, all sides of the argument, and to not just... So with that, I say thank you for listening to my reply.
Okay, thank you, Speaker, for that wonderful speech. Proposition and reply speech. Thank you.
Standing on the existing protocol as a reply speaker for the proposition, my duty is not to introduce new arguments, but to weigh the debate, crystallize the issues, and show why the proposition should win. You mentioned that the opposition argued that INEC is trying its best, or that some elections have been successful. But let us be clear, trying is not the same as delivering. When it comes to elections, we are not grading efforts, we are grading outcomes. And the outcomes have consistently fallen short of the democratic standard. They also claim that the INEC is not to blame. Then who is? They say that external actors like the politicians and the security are to blame. But this only strengthens our argument. If INEC cannot resist political interference and enforce laws to protect the sanctity of the vote, then it proves that INEC lacks the capacity to conduct free and fair elections. The first speaker mentioned that something about the new tech system, like the BVAS and the iTech and the IREV. However, it is safe to say that the 2023 presidential elections was one of the most watched in the recent history. And unfortunately, it was also marked by controversies like delay in uploading the results and violation. This makes me wonder, where did you get your information from? And what part of Nigeria are you living in? However, we still stand on our case. We're not asking for perfection. We're asking for competence, transparency, free and fair elections. Ladies and gents, let's not sugarcoat the truth. Wake up to the truth. I keep wondering, where did you get your information from? Because it seems like you're getting your information from the underground. Oh my goodness. It keeps provoking me. Like, aren't you living here? Didn't you see the news? Peter Obi, let's remember, a smart card reader couldn't recognize his thumb, and you keep saying there's improvements. How? INEC has had decades, billions of naira, and numerous chances to get it right. Yet elections are still characterized by delays, fraud. We have shown that INEC structures are flawed, and we still stand on our case. We stand firm, and we stand for a call of change, for free and fair elections. And we still stand and say that the INEC does lack the capacity to conduct free and fair elections. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for the debate. You can now cross team, shake hands, and Is it okay? Okay. Tell me when to start. Okay. So thank you everyone for the engaging round. I think the argument that came into this debate was very sound. One of the challenges we had was there was no proper engagement with teams on the arguments I bring. Everybody was making their own argument, and it was just standalone arguments. I make my own, you give your own, everybody's giving their own. But then there was no point where if this person is proving this, how are we showing you that what you are proving is not correct, or it's not, like trying to logically show that your argument is not true, or your reason or your logic is flawed. So everybody was just trying to prove why INEC is failing and why INEC is not failing. But then there was no such engagement on teams' argument. I think that's one of the things that was lacking so much, in as much as they were reasonable arguments. So on that, I'm just going to give us the justifications, or the result first and then the justifications. So the team that we have on first, or coming on top in this particular round, is the team from proposition, which is Sure Start, and then the team we have coming second, it's the team from opposition. Okay, here is the reason why we feel these guys are winning the debate, or won the debate rather. So because of the issues of engagement, there was lack of engagement between the two teams. It was now boiling down to who is now making the best of the best argumentations with logics and all that. So opposition's argument was largely on how INEC is showing progress. There is progress in the system, right? They're able to, at every particular time, there's always transmission of power from one government to the other government. They are still trying to deliver, in as much as maybe there may be a little hiccups, but they are still trying as much as they can to deliver their promises or deliver elections, right? Transmission of powers. And then the next thing they try to prove to us in the argument is that most of the problems that is existing inherently is not INEC's problem, it's not the institution problem. That was large of their case. It's system problem. When we talk about things like security, lack of ballot box coming at the right time, those problems are not necessarily INEC problem, but the system problem in general. But then there was no engagement to proposition case. That is why proposition is winning. First of all, proposition tells you that the perception of every result is based on the trust of people that voted in that particular election. Before I can believe the result you're giving is credible, I have to believe or trust that you're even credible enough to take on the whole processes to deliver a fair election. We got that from the first props, showing how there can't be credibility, especially if INEC chairmen are being appointed by the president, right? They gave examples of that where INEC chairman are being appointed by the president. So it shows that most of their, whatever they are going to be doing in an electoral period is always going to be in line with whoever that is appointing them, because for you to retain in power, you have to please whoever that is putting you in power. There was no argument from opposition showing how those accountability can even exist in the first place, because proposition have shown that accountability cannot exist. The system by which these guys came into power is one that is being brought up by people that they are even trying to maybe conduct election for. So they cannot be accountable. There cannot be any accountability to the citizens, right? It simply means citizens cannot trust that particular election. The second argumentation they give, right, which was very important, is on the argumentation of transparency. They proved how whenever there is any election discrepancies, right, INEC does not come up to explain why those problems are existing. They will just come up and tell you, well, the system is failing. If, like they proved, right, if you are putting enough money into things like beavers, right, whenever beavers is having issues in things like maybe transmissions of results and all that, populace is always going to have that distrust in that particular system. You have to give them reasons why those particular things is happening, but then there is always this kind of gap between INEC and the voters, right? So when you just go and vote, whatever that comes out doesn't concern us. If you don't want, like they say, go to court and all of those particular things, right? So they sufficiently prove, in as much as up argumentation was so much on, it is not the problem of INEC. We're making improvements. It is system problem, it's not institutional problem. Even if that is fine, these guys still engaged how it is INEC problem. One, they shows how they're not even maintaining some of the what's it called again? Constitutions, right? Or some of the rules that they're bringing forth. Most times when election comes up, they don't uphold some of those particular rules and regulations that they've set out in the first place. So it shows that it is not just system problem. It's INEC themselves not upholding some of their rules and regulations and all that. Secondly, they show how it's INEC problem on the issues of accountability. They're not so much accountable to the citizens or the voters who are engaging in that particular election, because when they go to vote, they have to trust that whatever results they are bringing at is reflecting their choices when they vote in those elections. But then there is no much accountability or that particular gap between voters and INEC. And then the last thing they prove is on that argumentation on transparency. There are some argumentations that came from prop, which was not so sound, that we didn't buy. Argumentations like things like military interference, because if you're going to buy that, it simply means OP is going to have a case, because OP is showing that it is not INEC problem. So if you're going to buy your argumentation on, well, military is interfering and all that, and then voter suppression, it is not an INEC problem, it is a system problem. But then as much as that, the core argumentation we get from proposition was so much weighing than what you get from opposition, on the idea of accountability, on the idea of transparency, and how even the INEC chairmen come into power in the first place, meaning the voters cannot even trust the person delivering the results. So on that point, we have short starts at the head and then followed by Raberto schools. Thank you very much.